Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome once again to the second day of the CIMC conference. My name is Ayesha, and it's a pleasure to be here today. The next session of the conference is titled NVOC Overview and Future Trends. I would now like to invite the first speaker for the session, Mr. R. Ramakrishnan, on stage. Mr. Ramakrishnan is the Vice President of the Goodrich Group, Vaso Maritime.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Ayu Bhavan. Okay, let me thank CIMC Events and the Sri Lankan NVOCC Association for inviting me to this conference and to speak to this forum on the importance of NVOCCs to this region and the role they play in ensuring sufficient inventory and sustainable freight rates. I think over the last few sessions, we have not heard much about this arm of the shipping liner industry. So probably I'll try and give you some insights into what this industry does to the shipping trade and how it contributes to the regional logistic movement. Shipping industry has had a fairly phenomenal 18 months or so, and so has the NVOCC industry, has also benefited from the upsurge that we saw in the demand and supply. Having said that, as we meet in November 2022, we are also witnessing a sharp drop in freight rates from the peak, what we have seen during the first quarter of this year. Now coming into what we call the NVOCC industry and their activity. NVOCC industry basically started as a fill factor on the various feeder routes that were connecting the Indian subcontinent, the Middle East, the Southeast Asian markets. But over these last 3 decades or more, the NVOCC as an industry has carefully and successfully carved a niche for themselves and a market space for itself in the global container trade. As we stand today, there are many trade lanes where more than 50% of the trade is controlled by NVOCC lines. And as cargo volumes continue to grow in this region, what we have been hearing from various panel discussions that have been happening, NVOCC lines would also continue to grow their business volumes in these current market as well as the new developing markets. One point that I would like to make here is the importance that NVOCC played, especially during the current crisis where we had in terms of shortage of inventory, shortage of shipping space. NVOCC lines played a very important role in this particular period in the trade routes that they served, because they ensured that the containers were available for the trade during this period, as well as they were able to even upsize their activity in some of these trade lanes, whereby protecting the cargo interests from having sufficient supply of container. This is a point which I would make to the policymakers and the overall trade in this region to pay a close attention on the importance of NVOCC in the context of ensuring supply of inventory and to prevent supply chain disruptions during peak demand periods, especially the one what we saw in the post-COVID period. Now, let us look at what are some of the key requirements for an NVOCC operation to flourish. One key factor is the availability of common feeder vessel operators with consistent space allocation and workable slot rates. Now, this is one key area that we need to keep in mind, that wherever there is a feeder operation, the NVOCCs are in a better position to offer the trade an overall better cost of operation. The second thing is in terms of terminal agreements at the ports, including the transshipment ports, to handle the inventory seamlessly. Now, with Colombo, and a lot of discussion even in the previous panel, we focus quite a bit in terms of transshipment and transshipment connectivity. Again, NVOCCs would hugely benefit from special terminal agreements and tariff, the transshipment tariffs in a way in which they can promote this trade much better. And then the rest is basically the good agency setup at all the key locations so that they have sufficient market coverage and a consistent cargo flow in the trade lanes, preferably on a two-way basis. NVOCCs, basically their assets that they invest is their inventory, and a two-way trade is always a much, much better option to them than one-way trade. Now let us look at what the future looks like. In the long term, NVOCCs should benefit from the decentralized manufacturing that has already been set in motion due to the challenges faced during the previous lockdown and the measures taken to mitigate such risks for the future. I think we touched upon this also in some of the panel discussions earlier yesterday. We should be grateful to we should gradually see an increase in the short sea and the intra-subcontinent movement due to this manufacturing model, which could aid in improving the overall volume of the NVOCC trade and the trade in general. We are also seeing a consolidation of the NVOCC industry, which is good, which basically brings about larger, better, and bigger players to this market. And as the common feeder vessel operators also expand their network by joining the various long-haul services with vessel sharing agreements with mainline carriers, NVOCCs could use this service to explore new opportunities, to expand their market, and to create a niche for themselves and aiding the overall growth of the container shipping industry. So what are the potential challenges that NVOCC industry could face during this background discussed, and the forecast for the global economy in the short to the medium term? As I've told you earlier, the common feeder vessel operator is a key component to the NVOCC industry. And the business sustainability is dependent on them. This area could see some potential challenges based on the consolidations of this industry, with some common feeder operators forward integrating to become liner operators and also having certain landside interests. We have another potential risk in the short to medium term, which is the global economic situation based on what IMF is projecting, what the various growth indicators of the global economic outlook are currently trending. We are bracing for a period of low growth or negative growth with high inflation, especially in major economies of the world. The cost of living crisis is resulting in shrinkage of discretionary spending powers in all the major consuming markets, and high inflation does not give room for central banks to lower the cost of borrowing. All these factors could push the global cargo volumes lower, resulting in increased capacity and a surplus supply of tonnage and equipment in the short to the medium term. I think yesterday during the first session, we had the presentation from the terminal saying, is the winter coming or is the winter already here? So we are more or less, as an industry, we are seeing the move towards a low volume and a high demand chasing the market. So we could be in for some period of the industry going through a corrective phase. We are already seeing the initial impact playing out on various trades with the new tonnage entering the market in 2023 and beyond, and we could see higher tonnages chasing the market and acting as a headwind to the overall shipping industry. The risk could also result in cargo flow mismatch in certain key trade routes of the NVOCCs, and this could have an impact on the competitiveness and the volume growth. Okay, we also live in a world right now with geopolitical tensions at various parts of the globe, and this could result in suspensions or restrictions in services to certain trade routes that could impact the overall business and remain a challenge based on the circumstances. Beyond this, on the short and medium term, NVOCCs would also need to invest in new age technology to keep pace with the demand of the trade and to ensure that they remain relevant and competitive in the global liner industry. Now, NVOCCs, as they grow, would also have to provide the services similar to what a mainline carrier today provides in terms of the technology transformation. So there would be investments that would need to be made on this front. Okay, in conclusion, my opinion is that NVOCCs will continue to evolve and grow over the long term as global container demand increases in line with global growth. NVOCCs who have shown resilience and determination to grow during this period are well positioned to face these challenges as well as take advantage of the opportunities posed by the future disruptions in the logistic chain. With this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you so much.